Sunday if you want me to. Hit me up in my 3, 2, 1. Hey, we up out of there, boy. Waiting on the home. Came down, bang, bang, put it on.
Alright, this says Flash games were really violent.
If you've spent any amount of time on the internet in the early
Flash
2010s,
games.
you probably remember Flash games were some of the weirdest but most
Yo, I remember playing this game in middle school, bro. I remember watching it like a long time ago too. This game was tough, bro. This game was fun. I might have to hop on. I might have to play this game on stream.
memorable pieces of internet media from that time period. A surprising number of these games were extremely violent, but if you remember correctly, back then the internet was just a completely wild place. You'd have shock sites in places like r/watchpeopledie just posting violence and death everywhere they can. And this was around the same time sites like Newgrounds, Armored Games, and Addicting Games were filled with extremely experimental violent video game content. And you could really see parallels between the two, almost like they were directly inspired by how violent and gross the internet was at the time. A lot of these early Flash games almost feel like shock content themselves disguised with video game elements. But it didn't really stop at just gore sites and Flash games. Animations posted on places like Newgrounds in the earlier days of YouTube were in a similar lane, and it really shows how influential this type of edgy content was at the time. Series like Llamas with Hats became iconic because they mixed Adult Swim style humor with over-the-top violence.
And, well, this guy walked in.
Okay.
So I went up to him.
Yes.
And I stabbed him 37 times in the chest.
It's a perfect example of how early internet creators would push boundaries while still keeping everything stylized and insensitive. Another example that defined that era was Happy Tree Friends. On the surface,
Oh yeah. This was on some crazy stuff. You could click on this thing, bro. You could click on this thinking it was about to be like a normal cartoon. Shoot, 30 seconds in, you like, hold on. Why is it so much blood in here? 3 minutes in, you like, okay. Why is that person's head falling off? Like you.
it looked cute, colorful kids cartoon, talking animals, bright colors, all very innocent, right? It looked like that at first, but beneath was random moments of horror that were unexpectedly violent for the viewer. Characters would get crushed, blown up, or brutally killed in
Man.
ways that you'd never expect to see in what looked like a kid's cartoon. The people laughed, cringed, and made kids scared. And it also got people to share it all over the internet. The mix of brutal violence with something that looked like it might be made for kids was exactly the kind of edgy and chaotic content that defined early internet animation. A lot like Flash games. Sometimes I wonder how many people my age are low-key traumatized from watching stuff like this as kids. Everything used to be so weird, creepy, and completely unpredictable in the early 2010s. But honestly, I love it, and stuff like this is the whole reason my channel even exists. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about some of the most violent Flash games from that era.
Skull
First
Kid.
up is Skull Kid.
Yo, I remember it was this one Flash game where it was like this little worm that like came from outer space, and he would like eat people or like crawl into them.
You're this kid in a
pretty
skull
crazy.
mask running around with a chainsaw completely mowing down anything in your path. Desks, coworkers, you name it. It's ridiculous, brutal, and kinda boring, but honestly it's the perfect example of how early Flash games didn't hold back when it came to violence. You eventually get a gun on the second level of this game too, you're not just stuck with a chainsaw the whole time. This game was short and aged pretty poorly, but I feel like it has enough charm to where I needed to place it on this list. The whole game kinda looks like a kid's drawing, which I like, and it reminds me of the edgy stuff I used to draw in 5th grade. Definitely an important piece of Flash game history. Next up is Whack Your Boss. And I've talked about this game.
This game was something different, bro. I wonder how much people who had like a trash boss played this game every day. Like, I know they boss was probably like this to them. Hey, you coming into work today? No? Well, you gotta come in anyway. Get your ass in there, boy. I know people came home every day playing this. Mad at they boss.
Game briefly before. There's a lot of variations of it, but Whack Your Boss is like objectively the best one. You're in an office with a super annoying boss who won't leave you alone, and the goal is to creatively get rid of him. This game is pretty messy and it's not exactly deep, but it's classic early Flash game violence. I probably spent way too much time trying to get all the possible ways you could kill this guy when I was younger. This game is almost just a torture simulator disguised as a game, and I think that's how a lot of these early Flash games were. It almost feels like they're directly influenced by how popular gore sites and shock sites were at the time. The newer internet might be worse in some ways, especially with like AI content and stuff, but this is not the type of stuff you really see nowadays. My mom got pretty
Yo,
mad at me for
oh
playing
my
this, and I can see
goodness.
why. I mean, just look at it.
Oh boy, I remember this.
Definitely not something I should have been playing in like 4th, 5th grade, but oh well, I turned out fine.
I hope you did.
Next game up is 13 Days in Hell. This one's just a straight up shooter where you're stuck trying to survive wave after wave of enemies that keep coming at you. You're fighting off endless creepy dudes with axes and these weird zombie things, and every day it gets more intense. You can tell the graphics are that really old like 3D Flash era stuff, but there's something exciting about just spraying bullets and trying not to get torn apart by these guys. It had an almost tower defense setup, but I remember thinking this was nuts back then, honestly. It's loud, kind of rough around the edges, but I feel like it doesn't get shown enough love. Next game up is Madness, and this is probably one that doesn't need an introduction at all if you spent any time on Newgrounds back in the day. Madness was both a series of insane stick figure animations and a game where you basically blast, slice, and punch your way through wave after wave of enemies. It's technically just stick people, yeah, but it somehow manages to be way more artistically creative than it should be. It's like someone took every super over the top action movie and mashed it into one tiny Flash window. Madness as a series stood the test of time and even has a more recent version on Steam. The series shaped a lot of people's childhoods for sure. I really hope some of you remember this game. Casuality is a classic early Flash stick figure game my cousin showed me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember playing, man, stick figure games were something else, bro. This is bringing back memories. For real, bro.
Where the entire objective is basically kill all the stickmen without the other ones noticing it. You do this by clicking around the scene to trigger environmental events that eliminate each stickman one by one. And if a remaining stickman sees how someone died, you fail the level. For a Flash game, it's surprisingly hard and strategic for such a simple concept. A lot of levels are like little puzzles where you have to figure out the sequence of clicks so that each stickman dies without tipping off the others. There's no direct combat or weapons in your hands, it's all about manipulating the environment to make the kills happen and go unnoticed. This game came in a bunch of versions over the years. There's even a Casuality 3 on Newgrounds, and the core idea never changes. Stickman deaths by any means necessary, as long as no one else sees it. Even if you've never played this game, you could probably still tell it's the most Flash game thing ever, violence meets stickmen. Another game that falls in this creepy category, and oh my gosh, there's so many I could name, but it's Penalty Chamber. And this one is brutally wild in the most Flash game way possible too. You basically throw a stick dude on death row into a
Why are they called Flash games? Because I'm just now hearing about this. I just thought these were just old games.
room full of deadly choices, traps, and ways to kill them. Spikes, saws, blades, all of it. You
Spikes,
click something and
saws,
you're watching
blades,
another
all that
ridiculous
stuff.
kill animation play out. Kinda like the Whack Your Boss series in a way, but a little more like with stuff you could do. There's no real goal other than figuring out all the hilarious gruesome methods though. It's making me realize there's almost a morbid curiosity trend with these games.
Happy Wheel.
This is one you've probably been waiting for. Everybody remembers this game who grew up online.
Yeah.
It looked silly at first, goofy characters on bikes and scooters, but the second you hit play, it's like the developer just wanted to see how messed up it can get. Limbs fly across the screen with splatters of blood, bodies get
And then the crazy thing is they started letting people create the little game maps. Really letting you see how crazy people are in the brain.
shredded while they flip and explode. Everybody knows Happy Wheels. Every level has some death waiting just around the corner, and what made it stick in people's heads wasn't really just the violence. People loved physics games in this time period. You might have started the level out trying to ride a bike, and then 3 seconds later you're impaled by spikes with your torso spinning on the ground. This game had a combination of gross, hilarious deaths and barely controlled ragdoll physics that made it so culturally popular and remembered online. Oh, and I briefly mentioned this in my last video, but the developer who made Happy Wheels also made this game called Divine Intervention, which would fit beautifully on this list. I'm not going to dive into it here though, but you can check my last video if you want to hear me talk about it. There's also a bunch of other crazy Flash games on that list that would have easily made this one. I just don't want to
Even more?
like
God.
Gunblood and Swords and Sandals. There's so much wild stuff from back then, it's impossible to fit it all in one video. Finally, there's Pico's School, which is probably the most infamous Flash game on this list. The safest way to explain it is it's a school.
Never heard of this one.
Yeah, you don't play as the bad guy in this game, but you start in a class and out of nowhere your classmate just pulls out a gun and chaos explodes, literally. From there, it's a scramble through the halls, finding weapons and trying not to get shot by the mean classmate, we'll just call him. But yeah, this game is sudden and terrifying for a kid, and also absurd in that classic Flash way I keep talking about. The graphics are borderline ugly, and the violence is so out of pocket, it's
It looks like this is the same artwork they used for Riddle School.
not the best game, honestly, but I feel like it's a good way to end this list. It's just like explains the media I grew up on as a kid. It's edgy, horrific, and very violent. Looking back at this stuff, it's kind of wild to think about what we were exposed to online as kids. I say we because I know some of you guys are older and some of my viewers are actually younger, but according to YouTube Studio, most of you guys are 18 to 25, which is my age, so the internet for a lot of us back then was unpredictable and completely unfiltered. You'd go from laughing at silly cartoons one second to watching a stick figure get absolutely obliterated the next. From Flash games, animations, to shock sites,
Boy, I'm knowing people who played this game hated they teacher. I know they teachers giving them extra work, extra homework every day. I know after school they hopping on this. Don't whack your teacher every day. I know they using the chair on that boy. I know they
were all
getting
experiments
grimy.
and pushing limits on the internet, and that's exactly why this era of the web sticks for so many people. It's easy to look at it now and think it was all over the top and just ridiculous, but there was some genuine charm to a lot of these games. It made people curious, creative, and yeah, a little desensitized to certain things, but in a way that inspired us to make, share, and appreciate content that felt alive and unpredictable. That's exactly the energy that got me hooked on making these videos in the first place, and why I love revisiting this weird corner of internet history. So yeah, maybe some of it was disturbing and didn't stand the test of time very well, and maybe a little bit of it traumatized the generation, but these are games that are pretty much relics of the internet now, and I know a lot of us can appreciate them. Before I fully close this video, I want to say that I've been experiencing an almost overwhelming amount of growth and support on
Dang. Well, that was an interesting. That was an interesting video. I brought back some memories I forgot about. And yeah, we out.